Welcome to the Grow People podcast. David Stein, along with lead pastor of Revolution Church, Jason Gertis.
Welcome. I just did it later.
Yeah, that's a thing. We have a guest in the studio. You'll hear her voice, but I have a very lengthy introduction.
It's too lengthy.
The purpose of the Grow People podcast is to help grow people.
Oh, you jumped in there. That's
well
great.
done. Well done. Just like we had Lance Witt on the podcast last month when he was in for the men's Abide Night, we have another family member who is in to teach for Women's Abide Night. She's joining us today. You may have seen her speak at a number of WOCOs here in the past. She teaches and tours with the Women of Joy conferences. She was one of the architects and pioneer writers of the Bible app. That is so cool.
Thank you.
That's been downloaded a few times.
Verse 5 it's been downloaded a few times here and there. You might have heard of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She's authored 2 books, one called We Over Me. Yeah. And the other one called Sick of Me. And we'll get into that. She's the co-founder of Simple Seminary. I want to talk about that. Hosts her own podcast called Theology and Other Fun Stuff. So please welcome to the podcast Revolution Church dear friend, speaker, author, teacher, Whitney Capps.
Thank you.
Yes.
Listen, I feel like I have joint membership at this point, so I do feel like a part of the family. So this is my Canton church home.
Well, there's a button on the app called Give.
So, there you go. Absolutely.
So if you want your tithe to be split,
there you go.
That's totally fine. When I say family member, it really is. I feel like when you come, this is a family meeting.
Oh, that's really kind. I feel very much at home and have felt loved for years. I mean, I think one of the first WOCOs I was a part of years and years and years ago. And so it's been fun to see the evolution of that and then that kind of birth into Abide and all that God's doing here. It's been a privilege to kind of get a front row seat to all of that.
Yeah.
There were so many things we were talking about as we were just gathering in the studio preparing for the podcast, which would have been a great podcast
in and of itself.
But we do want to get into it. One of the things that I got out of your speaking here was your love for the local church. And I know you're so plugged into your church in Georgia. So tell us a little bit about that. You have a family history of ministry.
Yeah. So my dad is my pastor. He's the only pastor I've ever had, which probably means I need therapy to some degree. I'm sure a therapist would have a heyday with that.
I will say this. Everybody needs a pastor that can father them.
Yeah. And he is that. He's a great deep, exegetical, thoughtful pastor. And so I didn't know that isn't always the norm. I know that's the norm that y'all have here with Jason, but I didn't realize that that's the exception to the rule until I would travel places and women would come up to me and they would say, "How do you know so much about the Bible?" And I just thought, well, I just go to church and I take notes. I didn't know that was something all that different. And so I'm very grateful for his ministry. He's been preaching now I think he's in his 52nd year.
Wow.
Which, a long obedience in the same direction. Pastoring is not for the faint of heart. And so, it's a privilege to get to sit every Sunday under his teaching. And now he's entertaining the idea of retirement. He tells people all the time God called him to it. And so until God calls him out, he's not going to retire, so he's waiting on the Lord. But
has he been at the same church for 50 years?
So he went to Southwestern. We moved to Covington in 1981, and he pastored a church until my senior year of college, the same church. So I'm that rare preacher's kid that grew up in the same place. My childhood best friend from kindergarten, she and I went to kindergarten. Her name's Lori Chur. We are still best friends. She goes to church with us. But he planted a church along with some other elders in our same community to kind of be more of an outreach church and disciple people. And so we've been in the same community, but at 2 different churches for the whole of my life. And so it's a real privilege. But now I look down the row, and so he's not only discipled, of course, my husband Chad and I, but now all 4 of our boys sit and take notes every Sunday and hear their grandfather teach, which is,
amazing.
I mean, it's really, that's what he says. He was like, they give him the fire to want to continue,
of course.
to keep preaching because they are note takers. And anyway, so to see them writing down, faithful words is just
really
such a
cool.
privilege.
That is cool. And I feel like we've seen your kids grow up through your preaching here.
Yeah, they have grown up a lot. Yeah, I actually have adults now, as do you, which is weird because our kids were little when we first met.
Yeah.
So I have a junior at Georgia Tech, Cooper, and then I have a freshman at Georgia Tech. So they're there together and just having the time of their lives. They're going to study abroad together this summer, going to be in Europe all summer, which will be
that's
really
awesome.
fun for them to have that experience. And then we have Ryder, who is a junior in high school, and Tate, who is in the 8th grade. And yeah, I don't even think Tate was, I think he was a toddler the first time I came.
I feel like,
he was little. Yeah, so we've
just been born.
seen, and you have like an actual married grown up, like an adult kid.
Just got
with
married.
It's crazy. It is crazy, and we haven't aged at all. How our kids have aged, I don't know. But
I don't know.
Anyway, yeah.
Because I do remember you saying, coming out on stage and like, girl, I got 4 kids and one of them's an infant and I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth
We're just
today.
praying to survive. We're just trying to get through it. Yeah.
And you and Chad have been married for?
So we actually will celebrate our 25th anniversary this year. We got married in 2001. And so May will be our 25th anniversary. Wow. And I'm so grateful for the Lord's faithfulness. I tell people all the time, I don't teach on marriage. Because the only thing I know for sure, this is it. So it would be a very brief teaching, but love is not enough to keep you married. Only Jesus is, because he is made for me and I love him. And there's still days I think we look at each other and we're like, I have no trouble believing in original sin.
Of course.
The depravity of the human heart. When I look at you and you look at me, we are 2 sinners desperately trying to figure this thing out. So anyway, but yeah, God's been faithful. God's been faithful.
And we found out today that Chad's a you never know guy.
Oh gosh, yes. He loves backstock, loves inventory, likes to keep things just in case because you never know.
You never know.
And that lit up Jason because turns out he's a you never know guy.
Yeah. Well, I didn't realize, but Lindsay and I's 25th anniversary is in January.
Oh yeah.
So we were just right behind you.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were talking when we were getting ready for this about that, like how he likes to stockpile things at home and cables and ties. And you never know.
You just never know.
You always need to have tools and
random zip ties.
Random zip ties.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it used to, I won't lie, that was one of those things, again, the sanctification of marriage that used to frustrate me. And now I'm like, I'm so glad.
Aren't you appreciative?
I'm married to a man. I never have to think about those things.
Yes.
Like I never have to think about any of those things. And it's such a gift. Now I've had to learn to live with the piles, but you know, it's
if you
a
can
give
just kind
and
of
take.
randomly put that into Lindsay's head today when you see her later, like that'd be great.
I'm sure she would agree.
Well, I did notice that when you said, you appreciate that. I think that was to Lindsay. That was.
Well, I would agree with you. I think she appreciates it now.
Yeah.
But what's funny is when you first get married and you don't have a lot of room to store that stuff, she was always asking me, can we get rid of that? Can we get rid of that? Do we really need that? But now I have a shed, like a dedicated place, so she doesn't really care.
That's
as long as it stays there.
That's right.
You never know.
I have a shop that it stays in.
Absolutely.
So, doesn't go in the attic anymore.
Yes.
Or wherever.
Have to step over it. Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you know this, but usually you speak twice when you come here, and you're speaking twice at Abide Night. During the break, half of the women are online looking to buy the shoes that you're wearing in your message.
That's hilarious. I do love shoes. I do love shoes. And I have found a special affection for my WOCO gals because we have shared a love for earrings and jewelry and shoes for many, many, many years. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, to our producer, Marcos, are we picking up the band rehearsing right now? Because if we are, can you run down and ask them to not?
Yeah, I think we're going to just time wise.
Okay.
But
yeah.
That is what that is. So if you're hearing that,
we have a house band.
Us,
we have a house
us
band.
getting ready for a bike.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, we've got a track in the background. So shoes, you still into the Coke Zero?
Oh, yeah.
Is that it?
Now, I've tried to cut my sugar intake, even though it's not real sugar. I've tried to cut back on the Coke Zeros with a cancer diagnosis. You try and, make better choices. But it's still up there. But guac and queso and chips are not something I've foregone. I'm just like, you know what? It's just a part of who I am. It's in my DNA. So, yeah.
Well, we have all been following your battle with cancer for the last 5 years. You have come here. You've preached during your chemotherapy. You're in a round of chemo right now. Give us an update. Where is it?
Yeah. So for those just quickly who don't know the story, I was diagnosed with cancer in 2021. I have Crohn's disease, and some of the inflammatory response in my body turned into cancer in my small intestine. And so we dealt with that, had a surgery, but it was in one lymph node. And so I had a course of chemotherapy and finished that, and then quickly discovered that it had moved to my colon, and then did a pretty invasive surgery and got clear margins, but then it came back in my liver. And so what we're dealing with right now is in my liver. I've got about 20 spots in my liver, which does sound like a lot and was certainly overwhelming to get that kind of piece of information, but they're really, really small, really small. And I'm on a protocol where every third Monday I go in for an infusion. It's about an 8-hour infusion. And then on the next day, on Tuesday, I do 14 days of chemo pills. And back in September, when we found out that that I had 20 spots in my liver, my cancer markers were at about 5,400, which is the highest they had ever been, and that's pretty high. And so that was kind of a gut punch. That was a tough day. But back before Christmas, we got our numbers back down to 1, like single digit 1, which is, my oncologist is a Christ follower. You know, it was the best phone call. He called and he said, "Listen, I can tell you that you're a walking miracle." He said, realistically, when you get numbers to 5,000, we should never see a number below 1,000 again. He said, I didn't think we'd ever see anything below 1,000. And you're now, at that time when he called me, I was at a 12. And then the next cycle, it actually went down to a 1. And so praise God, he's been faithful. And we're seeing miracles after miracles. I was telling y'all when I sat down, the life expectancy, my cancer is very aggressive and very, very rare. Like, we don't even have a ribbon. It's so rare. But the life expectancy was 18 to 24 months. And here we are almost 5 years in. And so God's been faithful. He's been really, really faithful.
He's been faithful, but what have you seen him do?
Well, I mean, I will just say, we were joking about this earlier. My theology of suffering has changed a whole lot. I'm going to talk about that a little bit tonight. What does it mean to live a blessed life? And how does suffering kind of poke a hole in maybe some of what we think about what it means to be blessed? But I can tell you, just the shortest version of this is, 5 years in, I wouldn't trade it. It's been the hardest thing I've ever walked through. There is not a nice word. Y'all will just give me grace for it, but I say all the time, cancer legitimately sucks. And I hate that word. My mom hates that word. And I'm like, well, Mom, it's the nicest word I can say that comes close to what this actually is. And chemo, it's awful. And so the Lord has been so constant and so close that 5 years in, I can tell you I wouldn't trade it. Wow. I mean that sincerely. I don't say that for to sound holy or righteous. Listen, I have plenty of days that I struggle, but I can tell you 5 years later, I know him better. I know him better because of this story that he's entrusted to our family. And we talk about it all the time. It's not a curse. It's not a punishment. My body's broken. God didn't give me cancer. My body is broken because of the fall. And he didn't give me cancer as a punishment, but he didn't stop it either, right? So we live in the tension of a sovereign, good God who allows things like this to happen, and he didn't stop it. And so we say as a family, we've been entrusted this story, and so we want to steward it well. And our marriage is stronger. Chad and I are more in love today than we have ever been. Our boys' faith is stronger in ways that, if I'm honest with you, I'll still cry talking about it, but when you get a cancer diagnosis, the first thought in my mind was, God, don't let it affect the boys' faith. I don't want it to shake their faith because they're so young. Yeah. And it's been the opposite. I have seen a resilience and a confidence and a peace that, any family who's walked through something really hard, you just go, the Lord has truly built their faith on a rock. And that's not to say they won't fall and they won't stumble. And listen, our kids are sinners and walking with Jesus is complicated. But I'm amazed at what the Lord has done. And so, I can tell you 5 years in, I really sincerely wouldn't trade any of it.
That's incredible. Let's go back to previous years before the cancer diagnosis. You're preaching at Abide on Genesis chapter 12. You will be blessed to be a blessing. How was your theology of suffering prior to this?
Well, this is not everybody's story, so I'm very aware when I say this that this puts me kind of in a unique category, but my story up to that point had been very vanilla, very benign. I was raised in a Christian household, came to know the Lord at a very early age. My parents are still married. I have never, listen, I need therapy for this. I've never heard my parents argue. I've never heard them say an unkind word to one another, ever. And I'm 47. So just a very, very blessed in the traditional sense of the word, not a lot of hardship. The Lord insulated me. I had great friends in high school and college. I had a great discipleship relationship with, a campus organization. I went to Berry College, and the Lord grew my faith. And so, I knew that it was abnormal, but yet for my story, the blessing of God had been favor and ease and comfort.
Yeah.
And I knew that was still from him. So I gave him all the credit and all the glory for it, but it was not kind of the gnarly, messy story that so many of us do walk through. And so when cancer became a part of our daily experience, we had to kind of reframe, what does it mean to be blessed by God? And what does it mean to walk and live in the goodness of God? And I think I taught on this a couple of years ago, but his goodness is not merely his doing, it's actually his being. And what I realized was I had built a theology where God's goodness was his doing. He does this for me. I experience this from him. Well, if that's your theology of the goodness of God, when God ceases to seemingly do good things, which is not true, but that's how it feels, right? That's how it feels sometimes. God's not doing good things for me anymore. Or God is, even in our most desperate moments, we would say, allowing bad things. Your theology begins to crumble. And so I had to rebuild that, going, okay, God's goodness, his blessing is not his doing. It is primarily his being. And I can tell you, I have never felt far from him, which is not because of any good thing in me. I believe it is the faithful prayers of the church and people that I don't even know. And God has been so present. I dread chemo Mondays. I dread them so much, but I can tell you I walk in with a joy and a peace that only comes from the Holy Spirit because his goodness is his being and he is present.
Something that I've said many times here, and I don't know where I first heard it, but as we were talking, I just got back from Kenya and I preached it there, which almost feels like when you're in a third world country, it almost feels like weird to say, but the line, it'll make sense when I say it, but the line that I have said many times is, if God never did another good thing for you, is what he has already done in Christ enough.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us would love to believe that.
Right.
And I think we do
and
believe
we nod.
that. Yes. Like we believe that theologically, but then practically when you start thinking, and again, saying this to a Kenyan audience who they have a dependence on God that I don't have to have a lot of times because they just don't have the physical necessities a lot of times that we have. And so that's what I mean. Like it felt a little weird to say it to them. But in a more, powerful way, but it has to be even more true for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you don't want a church or a theology to be built on, I believe in God because he's going to do all these good things for me. And again, it doesn't mean he won't but to your point, it doesn't mean that he's not good if he doesn't.
That's right.
Because what he did was enough. Yeah.
And let me just say, because I don't want anybody to hear this and think I don't struggle. One of the things that I wrestled with, especially early on in my cancer story, was how do I walk authentically with God and being honest about my hurt, my frustration, my pain, my disappointment, my sadness, my anger. How do I trust him with that, but yet still be reverent, right? Yeah. He's God. And so what's that tension? And you can speak into this, Jason, but one of the things I got to was that I'm a journaler and I would just write, God, you've hurt my feelings, because I would try and be honest about my feelings. Yeah. This hurt my feelings. But there is a truer truth than what I feel, right? Yeah. That's why David would say, why are you so downcast, oh my soul, put your hope in God, right? We can boss our feelings around. Yeah. But I got in this practice and discipline where I would try and at least name my feelings and take them to the Lord and try and be honest about them. Yeah. But then try and walk away with what's the truest truth of this scenario, which is that he's faithful and I can find goodness even in the really, really cruddy days. And there have been a lot of really cruddy days. But I can find a truer truth that speaks to the feeling that I'm having and reframe it in a way that is Christ exalting.
No, I love that. In fact, I was talking to a young guy last night who's a new believer in our church after our Thursday night gathering. And he trusted Christ in August. So he's 6 months in. Yeah.
Got recently baptized.
Yeah, recently baptized. And so this is all new to him. And he was just talking about how like, post-baptism, he was doing really good until I got baptized. And now like the temptations. And I said, man, I'm going to tell you something. Like, and I didn't learn this because unlike you, I didn't grow up in church. like early on in my life with Jesus, I would pray, not fake prayers, but they definitely weren't honest prayers. Because I would say like, God, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Whatever sin it was, until I realized I'm actually lying.
Yeah.
Like, no, there is a part of me that does want to do this.
Yeah.
And so that's when my prayers, life, to your point, changed of like, no, God, I do want to do this. That's why I need you to help me.
Right.
Or God, I am struggling with this. Like, you hurt my feelings. Like, this hurts.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you said that, because I do think there is a depth that comes in our relationship when we're actually honest in our prayers.
Yes. And it's not that he doesn't know.
Oh,
and so
he
I don't
already
need to
knows.
hide it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it was important to me that God not become kind of this just dumping ground for all this angst and because I wanted to still preserve the reverence of, but you are God and I am not.
Of course. Yeah.
And so how do I be as authentically real in my human experience, knowing that I have a great high priest who empathizes with everything that I'm feeling, but yet also not be a slave to those feelings, because you can kind of get in this death spiral of kind of trying to find your way out of these feelings, which feel, I have wrestled with my own mortality. It gets really loud. And so I have to have a place where I can talk about that, but then find the truer truth in that.
That's really good.
There are two aspects of what you're going through. There's you as a mom and a wife, and then there's Chad as a father and a husband.
Yeah.
So listening right now, there are women who are, and you'll be speaking to them at Abide Night, there are women who are going through cancer treatments. There are men who are going through cancer treatments. There are husbands who are caring for their wives. There are wives who are caring for their husbands. From both of those perspectives, can you encourage those husbands and wives that are listening?
Well, let me say, I do, without hyperbole, so this is not me trying to play a martyr, I think the caregiver role is harder. I do think it is harder because Chad has said it often, I would give anything to take some of what you're experiencing. And I know he means that genuinely. And he has said there's this latency where you just feel helpless to do anything, which is not true, because he has ministered to and cared for me in not just deep, meaningful spiritual ways, but in practical ways. Coming out of the hospital, I could do nothing for myself. And so he has literally been the hands and feet of Jesus. And so I just want to say to caregivers, you do legitimately have it harder. So on the days when you feel that sense of overwhelm, it's legitimate. It is well earned and well deserved, because this is a high and holy calling to care for somebody else and to do it. And I know one of the gifts, God in his providence, gave me a husband who is an engineer. So feelings for him are utilitarian, which used to be really frustrating to me, because I had big feelings. I have very big feelings. And I remember very early on, we laugh about it now, but he would say in all sincerity, not meaning to wound or hurt me, although it did, he would say, but you understand that's a dumb way to feel, so just don't feel that way. And he didn't understand why I couldn't just pack my feelings away. But again, he's an engineer and feelings are useful. And if they're not useful, then you don't feel them.
Yeah.
Well, now 25 years in, what a gift it is to have somebody who, again, he's been sanctified so he can let me feel.
Of course.
But then he can step in and say, okay, now we're going to rally. Now we got to do the hard thing. Now we're going to say the truth. We're going to tell ourselves the truest story that God is writing. And so, just to be that voice of truth and comfort. But I can say this with all certainty. He is a man of the word. He's in God's word every day. I don't think he could do that with that well of life springing up within him. I don't think we're capable of this kind of sacrificial system. He's been doing it for 5 years, and it has not been easy. He's a CEO of a company and has a full-time job, and there have been days that he's had to call and say, guys, I can't make it, and cleared his schedule because I was sick or I needed something. And so, you appreciate immensely what that's like. And then for those of us going through it is the humility to receive the help and the vulnerability just to say, I'm not okay. And that is not easy for me. It took a lot of practice to say, hey, I'm not okay. It's still hard for me. It's hard for me to say to my girlfriends, hey, I'm not okay. But one of the things, you were talking about this earlier, we have probably, this is, again, I'm not exaggerating, I bet we've been fed over 100 meals in 5 years of people, some people that I know, some people I don't even know would just show up with food at our door. And a couple of years ago, one of the boys said, Mom, why are people doing this for us? And we've been able to say, this is what the body of Christ looks like.
Wow.
This is what the church does, whether we know somebody or not. And so when we are no longer in a season of need, we want to be the people who will then extend this same kind of grace to other people. And I'm not in a season, I won't lie, when somebody needs a meal, they get a gift card from me right now. So full disclosure, they're not getting a home-cooked meal. But I look forward to the day when I can continue that grace gift in somebody else's life. And man, we've seen it. And it is the beauty of the bride. And it has been on full display for us.
Wow.
No, I love that. And I'm glad that you said both sides of that and I think it speaks to who you are. Like you first talked to the caregiver. Because I can't imagine that. Like I can't imagine having cancer, nor can I imagine my wife having cancer. And Lindsay and I think, are similar to you and Chad in that. I mean, I'm not an engineer, but I definitely feel like, well, even saying the word feel like is normally I don't use that. I say I think, not I feel.
That's right.
You know, but I've told Lindsay many times, like, yeah, what you feel is real. It's really real. It's just not right.
Yeah.
You know, and we joke about I said, I feel like I'm on a roller coaster. Like this is up and down. I got to get off of it. Like this is making me nauseous. And she was like, yeah, I know we need to get off of it, but sometimes I just want you to ride it with me. And I'm like, how long?
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
So I can't imagine, like you've been on a 5-year roller coaster.
It's a lot.
And so what God's done in you and him and your boys, that's a very helpful perspective. And I'm glad that you mentioned that because it is, I don't know, like me as a pastor, even though we've dealt with people, I have not, my sister has cancer, but I have not dealt with it in my own house like that. And so I'm glad you are addressing that because I do think that that's very helpful to a lot of people to be someone of your role in their life. Like I think a lot of times people look to pastors and ministers and speakers and they just have this built-in assumption that, oh, everything goes easy for you. You know? Like actually it pretty much is the exact opposite of that.
Rarely. But let me say this. I want to say to anybody listening, because you can listen to this and think, oh, it's a cancer podcast. And we have this really bad habit in the church of comparing pain. I mean, women will come up to me in line and go, well, I mean, it's not cancer, but. And I just wish we wouldn't do that. So if you're listening to this, whether you're walking in your marriage is in crisis, or you have a wayward child, or your teen is struggling with sexual identity, or you're having to care for an aging parent, or whatever it is, everybody's story is hard. And that doesn't disqualify you from articulating the pain that you're in, because in our mind, we weigh it out. Well, this is bad and mine is not as bad. I think it's a tactic that the enemy has used to keep the church siloed and silent in our pain. And so don't hear this and think, well, it's not as bad as cancer, because whatever you've been asked to carry, if you hold it long enough, it's heavy.
It's heavy. Yeah.
And so most of our listeners are listening to this and they're carrying something heavy. And so God is present and with you, whether your story looks like mine or not, whether this is the version of hard you've been entrusted with. It's okay that your story is hard and for you to articulate that.
That is so good, because that's the real conversations that we hear. Hey, I'm not going through what you're going through,
but
and it's not as bad as that. But I think it is really helpful for people to understand, hey, suffering is suffering.
Yeah.
Pain is pain.
That's right.
Were there moments that you said, I'm done? I can't do another round?
I haven't hit there yet. There have been moments. So in May of 2025, I had 5 spots on my liver, and we were doing chemotherapy and targeted radiation. And all my numbers indicated that those spots were dead or dying. So I had scans. And so I went into my doctor's office in May of 2025, and he said, yeah, those 5 spots are gone. And I truly believed that was it. I was at the finish line. And he said, but there are now 7 new spots in their place. And so what I thought was the finish line moved. And it was after running a really long marathon. And I had been upfront, like my, if you follow me on social media, my closest friend group knows, our church knew, I was saying, pray for a break. I need a break. I'm so so fatigued. I'm so tired. And I really thought that break was on the horizon. I will tell you that particular appointment gutted me. I mean, I wept because I was just so fatigued. And the thought, not just of running further, but feeling like I was at the finish line and that finish line got moved. You know, you've run a marathon and somebody goes, oh, but now let's run a 5K. And I sat there, I said, I'm an oncologist as a Christ follower. And I just said, Eric, I thought we were going to beat it. And he said, I know. And the reality is, I don't know if I'm going to, I don't know if I'll beat it this side of heaven. I'm very careful with my language. Either way, I win.
Of course.
Yes.
Either way, I win. And one day when you read Whitney Capps' obituary, it will, all the boys know, Chad knows, it won't say she lost her battle with cancer, because that's not true. Cancer cannot take one day from me. It doesn't have that authority. God has already appointed my day when I'm done. And that's whether it's an aneurysm or a car accident or because my body is done with cancer. I am confident in that. But it was feeling like, man, I really did think we were going to get the other side of this.
Of course.
And the truth is, my cancer is so aggressive. I will probably be on some form of chemo or maintenance the rest of my life. And so what I had to reconcile with is, okay, God, are you still good if you've asked me to carry this the rest of my days? If this is what the rest of my life looks like, are you still good? And can I carry it with joy to its completion? Can I run this race well? And there have been plenty of days that I thought, nah, I can't. No, I cannot. But all I can tell you is I have never lacked the grace to do the next thing. And that is only by his, not because I thought I had it, not because there's some, y'all, I am not a strong person. People say all the time, I could not do what you do. And my grandfather was a pastor, and he used to say, you get dying grace on your dying day. And you get cancer grace on your cancer day. And so I have had the grace that I needed when I needed it. And so, yes, there are plenty of days that I feel that way. But for whatever the next thing, if it was sitting in, a basketball gym watching Tate play basketball, or going up to move the boys in at Georgia Tech, or driving my mom to a doctor's appointment, or going to a speaking engagement, I have had the grace to do the thing. And it is to the praise of his matchless name. There's not an equation for that, right? You don't study up. There aren't enough spiritual disciplines that kind of get you in the right headspace for that. It is his grace, and he has been so faithful.
I want to ask you a question, and it may feel like a weird question, but it kind of, I don't know if anybody's ever asked you this, so I hope it doesn't, I hope it comes across right, which is a great setup for a question, right?
I'm going to love it. The weirder, the better.
Yes, but and I ask this question because I wonder, I feel like this is how I would think about this if I got a cancer diagnosis. But it's like, the question is like, when you first found out that you got cancer, was there ever a thought of like, all right, Lord, we could, like, you're going to give me cancer for a few years, but you're going to turn this into a great story, and you're going to use this. So I'm good with it because of that.
Sure. Sure.
But almost to your point of like, but was there a moment where you realized, okay, that's how I used to think about it, and I was okay with it because of that. But now, like, have you ever had that thought? And if you have you moved past that thought? Does that make sense?
Yes and no. So I'm going to answer this as honestly as I can. And I already know how it's going to sound. So this is not to sound self-important or puffed up. I struggle. So let me give you a little context. Yeah. When I first sensed God calling me into ministry, I was at a massive arena event for women. And I waited in this long line to hear for one of the speakers. And I walked up to her table and I said, I think God's calling me to do this. And she said, oh, honey, I was 18. I was a freshman in college. And she said, honey, you don't start here, and you are far too young. Yeah. And you have to have a story before God can really use you. Yeah. And so I didn't tell anybody for several years because I thought, well, I don't have a story.
Exactly.
And who wants a story? I mean, why do you want that to be like the litmus test for ministry? I have the journal entry. I went and I was like, Lord, I wrote in my journal, if you never give me a story, I will only tell yours. I don't want a story. I just want to teach the word. That's all I want. If that means I don't ever get to be in ministry, if she's right, that you have to have a story, then I just won't be in ministry. But I just want to teach the Bible. Yeah. And so in his kindness, for about the first 20 years in ministry, that was true. I didn't have a story. So I just told God's story, and it brought immense delight to my heart.
Of course.
And so when I got cancer, I thought, maybe this is my story. Yeah. But I was not comfortable making my story the centerpiece of the message. And that's not to sound holy or to try and, I was used to teaching the word. That's more comfortable for me. I was still wrestling with, I don't even know rightly how to talk about cancer. What if I say something wrong? Do I jack up the sovereignty of God by saying that God didn't give me cancer, but he didn't stop it? And how do so all of that was in my head. Yeah. So really it was safer for me for a season to go, I'm not ready to talk about that yet because I don't know how to do it well. But eventually it got to where people would say, no, we really want to hear your story, which was very comforting, but also really scary to me. And so I sat down with Dad and my brother, who has his PhD in apologetics, and kind of wrestled through suffering and how do I talk about that well? How do I be authentic, but yet try and be as Christ exalting as possible? And so it's become more natural for me to talk about. And now it really is probably the number one thing I talk about. And I have tried to release that to the Lord to say, if this is the way you choose to bring yourself glory, then so be it, whatever that looks like. And I won't say I'm still really comfortable with it. I'm releasing a Bible study in September. It's on the doctrine of grace, and a lot of it is around my cancer story. And I would get real uncomfortable. And the Lifeway team kept saying, no, lean into this is what women want to. They want to see somebody who struggles. And that was the beauty. It's one of the reasons I think God has continued to allow me to do ministry is I can stand on stage and say, y'all, I'm in the messy middle. I am not on the glorious other side of this. I'm still believing for miraculous healing. We ask God for it every day. But I'm not there yet. I am in the messy middle. And so all I can bring to you is what it looks like to walk with Jesus in the messy middle when I don't have clear answers and when it still hurts and I still struggle. I hope that brings him glory. I think women have been blessed by it because a lot of times we do wait until the other side. And I think that's wise, right? There's some wisdom in waiting until you're kind of through the mess of it to reflect back. It's just not what God has asked me to do. So I'm trying to be as vulnerable and messy as I can, but still as biblical as I can. And I'm sure 10 years from now, I'll look back and go, man, I wouldn't have said that, or I would have said it this way, or I wish I had this perspective. But in the meantime, we're just doing the best we can with the story we've been given.
No, and I love that because, and that's why I think I felt safe asking you that question, because I trust you and trust the Spirit in you. But I do think that a lot of us, and I reference this often as well, like with the story of Job and the problem of evil and all those things that we wrestle with. But the most striking thing to me is not that Job suffers. It's that Job never gets a reason. Job never gets an explanation. All he gets is 3 or 4 chapters of, where were you when I did this?
That's right.
Where were you when I did this? And Job has to get to the place of like, oh, I'd heard about you, but now I've seen you. And he never gets an explanation.
That's right.
And I think the problem with so many of us is like we think we deserve an explanation in that. And that's why I framed it that way is like, I think most of us would be okay with it if we're like, oh, because you're going to use
There's a divine purpose.
Yeah, there's a reason. And clearly there is. I'm not saying there's not, but we may not ever fully understand that. And yet Job, God is clear, like in all this, Job never sinned.
Yeah.
You know, but Job never had easy answers like his friends did, and they were all wrong. Like, what'd you do, Job? You deserve this. Clearly, he's like, I didn't do nothing. You know, I don't know.
And one of the things that anytime I talk on this issue of suffering, and I don't know if you ever have this experience after you preach a message. The first time I taught this was actually at our home church. Revolution is one of the few places that I will come and launch a message. Typically, I only teach it at my home church first. I trust y'all enough, and y'all have been so kind. But I don't test drive new material a lot of places because there's a working through of it. And I would have said this different anyway.
This isn't midnight at the Comedy Store.
That's exactly right. I mean, we're not ad-libbing here. But I taught this at my home church. And I said, I think many times we often think that suffering is a punishment from God. And so we get into this kind of let's make a deal where if I confess this sin, then the suffering will stop. If I correct this behavior, the suffering will stop. If I mend this relationship, the suffering will stop. While God can sometimes use suffering as correction, so I'm not disputing that,
of course.
It is never punitive for the Christ follower. No. And I said, The problem is when we think that we're being punished, what we're actually saying is Jesus's work was not sufficient.
Yeah.
And this, at the end of the night, so again, I said it kind of was a little bit of a drive-by. I didn't think it was necessarily going to land, but just, hey, Jesus's work was sufficient, which means I'm not being punished with cancer. That's not what God is doing. Is he refining me? Yes. Do I look more like Jesus 5 years later? Absolutely. But it's not a punishment. This woman came up to me. She'd waited at the end of the line, and she's sobbing. And she said, I had cancer 15 years ago. And she said, for 15 years, I have strived to live as holy as I could so God didn't punish me with breast cancer again.
Wow.
And I do want to say to those listening, what if you are in Christ, what you're experiencing is not punishment. No. He's not mad at you. He's not angry. Now, again, he may correct. He's always working to make us look more like Jesus. But it has been releasing that pressure of, I'm not bargaining with God. That's Job, right? Job wasn't punished. He was righteous, and in all this, he did not sin.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm righteous. I'm not claiming to be Job, but God is not punishing me because in Christ,
you are righteous.
All of that has been fully satisfied.
Yeah.
All of his wrath has been set aside. And so he uses it to refine me, and he is rough. He's kind of sanded off some rough places in my heart. And I say to the glory of his matchless name, which I tell women all the time, like I wish women would say, listen, I'm not perfect, but I'm better than I was. Can you imagine if tonight at the end of Abide, women went out into Canton and were like, listen, the gospel works.
Yeah.
I'm a better wife than I was 10 years ago. I'm a better mom than I was last week because the gospel works, not because of me, but because this thing that we've given our lives to, it works. Well, I can tell you 5 years in a cancer journey, I look more like Jesus because the gospel works, not because of anything good in me, but because the gospel works. Totally. And that's what I would say to people who are suffering is the gospel works. It really is sufficient for whatever place you find yourself in. The gospel truly does work.
Yeah, that daily grace you're talking about. And I've never gotten into this. We've never talked about this, but going back to Job, it is a fascinating, which now is not the time, but it's a fascinating thought, and you would probably know this, but there's a lot of scholars believe that Job is the oldest book that we have. And there's some debate on whether or not he was a real person.
Right.
You know, it's a story. But you can't get away from the Christological, perspective of it, that Job is Jesus in that story, or Jesus is the greater Job, which is probably the safest way to say it.
Right.
But yeah, because it's like to say because of like Job was righteous and you said it, and like Jesus was righteous, now we have been made righteous in him. And because of Jesus, who did nothing wrong, yet he suffered, the gospel, the grace does come to us every day.
Yeah.
And I love how you said that because, that's what I would want for anyone in our church. Like that, I'm so glad you said that, and whoever that lady was, like that breaks my heart. Knowing that someone here thought that.
Lived under a burden of that for years to think, I've got to keep God happy or otherwise he punishes me.
Yes.
And just the thing, because I know y'all are so gospel-centric and we're going to be talking about gospel conversations tonight, really, the story that you're walking through is the perfect place to say the gospel works, right? Because I think sometimes we get caught up in our testimony or how do we talk about it or what's the right way to couch it or what's that dynamic. The easiest thing for me over the last 5 years has been able to talk about cancer and say, but the gospel works.
Yeah.
The gospel works. Like I've had grace to make it. Like it's the perfect way and a hope-filled way to take whatever pain or story you have, even if you're in the messy middle of it, to be able to say, but the gospel is here in the middle of this mess with me. Yeah. And I've seen him be faithful. And so those are those gospel conversations that we're hoping we initiate with our friends, our neighbors, our coworkers, the woman that we're sitting beside at a basketball game.
I think that's a huge takeaway, that on the day that you need it, God's going to give you that grace, just like your grandfather said. There are going to be 1,300 stories. 1,300 stories walking into the auditorium tonight. They're going to hear your story, but there may be 100 women with cancer and 1,200 with a different story.
Right.
And those stories are flooding their social media.
Yeah.
And there's the comparison trap, and there's all of these other things that women are going to. So kind of to shift into another gear here, as you're speaking to women, and your audience is mostly women, as you're speaking to women, someone who is not suffering from cancer, somebody who is not going through a health trial, somebody who's going through a marriage trial, somebody who's going through an addiction trial, how does this play out?
Well, one, I think suffering has this baked in gift, and it's a costly gift. We're going to talk about it a little bit tonight. It's a costly gift, but it kind of strips you away from the things that you think you need to be happy. I joke with Chad all the time. Like, one of the ways I look more like Jesus 5 years later is I just don't get upset about stuff. I'm generally, I hate conflict, so I don't get upset about a lot of stuff. Now, I would stuff it. So again, I need therapy. So I could kind of stuff it, but I was fine. But now 5 years in, I just don't get upset about stuff. And so one of the gifts that we can find, no matter what our story of suffering looks like, is to find those gifts that are embedded in the everyday trials that we're experiencing, where you kind of go, you know what, this doesn't feel as earth-shattering as maybe it did, a few years ago or would have at one point. And so it's always trying to allow the gospel to reframe the human experience in a way that is more eternal than temporal. And again, this is from somebody whose mortality is just really loud. It's just one of the things that's kind of always there in the background. Eternity feels really close to me, right? That veil between heaven and earth has gotten really thin for me because I don't know. I am believing. Listen, I pray every day.
You're not under an illusion.
I'm not. I'm believing I will see my boys get married and I will hold my grandkids. That's my prayer. So God knows, but that veil is thin. But it is, our stories can be reframed in a way that the things that we once thought were blessings because they were comfort or ease or they made us even temporarily happy, we can go, I actually don't need those things to prop me up into self-satisfaction. What I really need is the hope of the gospel. And I know some people are hearing this and they're going, that sounds really good, but it can ring hollow in the midst of suffering. And I do know that. So I want you to know that sounds like, man, a really nice Sunday school answer. All I can tell you is, from the depths of my soul, it is the truest truth I've ever known. It's the truest truth I've ever known. And I don't wake up every day feeling that. That's where going to his word and being in prayer and journaling and trying to be, I do think the spiritual disciplines prop us up and give us tools to kind of tap into the grace of the gospel. And so I would just say, I think this is an area where the Lord says, test me in this. We're not to put the Lord to the test, but I think he's going, no, try out the gospel. Use it up for everything it's worth. I mean, see if you don't find that it's exactly what I promised you.
One of the questions I was going to ask you, and you have answered it over the last 45 minutes, how can you encourage women? But you've been encouraging with the only thing that is the answer to how do we encourage, and that is Jesus Christ and him crucified. At what point in your life before the cancer diagnosis was that real?
So I have I have kind of an interesting testimony. So I came to faith in Christ at 4. I remember it. It is sealed in my memory. I walked down the aisle. I remember talking to Dad. I knew I was a sinner and I wanted Jesus to be my Savior. I remember being baptized. Like, it is a seminal memory for me. But growing up, after that, I was always plagued with this insecurity that maybe I didn't know enough. How sincere can a 4-year-old be? What if that wasn't enough? And so I always kind of doubted my salvation. And so we had a revival meeting when I was 12, walked down the aisle, made a profession of faith, and Dad chose to baptize me. Now, we may get to heaven and the Lord go, that was just a bath. The first one took, that was completely unnecessary. I have no idea. But I do know from that time, I've never doubted my salvation. It was one of those where I was like, I know that I know. Right. I know that I know. And it was kind of appreciating the childlike faith of a 4-year-old. So anybody listening, I'm not saying that 4-year-olds can't get saved. That's not what I'm saying at all. I think
Piper was saved at 6.
There you go. So clearly it stuck.
With his knees on his prayer bench.
That's right. And probably, a tweed jacket. And
he had elbow patches.
That's right. Anyway. So I do know through my teenage years that I walked with the Lord. And one of the things that Dad, because we wrestled with this when our boys all came to faith, was how do you know? How do you know that a kid knows enough? And he was like, it's this weird thing, we in contemporary church have kind of made it this walking down the aisle, and it's this singular moment. And we certainly have examples of that in the scriptures. But really, when you think about the Jewish, it's this progression, right? It's this growing in the knowledge and nurture of the Lord. And so he was like, they don't have to know everything today, you know? And so I again, it's a grace gift. I was discipled in my home church. I was discipled in college. And so falling in love with Jesus changed everything for me. And again, this is not everybody's story, but I had a dad who loved me deeply. So it was really easy for me to go, oh, wow, God loves me like this. Then I can follow him the rest of my days. I know that's not everybody's story. And if it's not your story, I'm genuinely so sorry for you. But I did fall in love with Jesus young and early. And I think so many of those lessons early on are things that I still grab a hold of now in seasons where I go, God knew that hardship was coming. And I had deep roots. And that's by his kindness that he was like, no. In seasons of ease, we're going to go really, really deep. And we're going to have deep roots because they're going to be necessary down the road. And I've for sure found that to be true.
Wow.
I love, sorry if you had the analogy that Keller uses, and since you just mentioned, and with us, our mission statement of grow is very agricultural language anyway. But Keller talks about that like a seed going to the ground. Like you plant it in the ground, you can't see it. You don't really know when it took. All you know is it did because you can see it now. Like it has roots, it has growth. And that's always comforted me because I don't remember exactly how old I was. I was baptized actually 3 times and I joke about that now. But I love how you said that, like, because I do think a lot of people, we all get in our head about that.
Oh, for sure.
Like either we are being punished or we don't know enough, especially when we're younger and we're not secure in it. You know, it's like, you don't have to know when it took or how it took or what. All you need, it took. It's there. You can see it. You know, you can see the evidence. We'd say fruit in your life. You know, you can see the evidence of God in your life. And one of the things that was so comforting to me, and again, I don't remember who told me this, because I wrestled with whether or not I was saved too, until one day I realized, you know, lost people aren't out there wondering if they're saved.
That's right.
Not.
It's only a redeemed person's thought.
So if I'm sitting here wondering if I'm saved, it's probably a good evidence I am.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So true. And let me just say, our boys are kind of cerebral, very much like they're very logic driven. And the 2 older boys in particular, how do you know that I'm a Christian? This is the power of discipleship and why discipleship relationships matter so much, because for me to be able to say, I see Jesus in you. And for people who are doubting, it's the power of discipleship for us to pour into one another's lives, to be able to say to somebody, no, you may not see it. And I do think it's hard for us to see in ourselves because we are very aware of our own sinfulness and our depravity. But for somebody else to go, no, I see what Jesus is doing in you. I see it. And that gives a kind of confidence that you can really kind of build some momentum on, to see somebody, hear somebody go, no, I see what he's doing in you. And it's lovely. And it is evidence of the Spirit.
That is so real. And why GROW is an acronym and the R is relationships.
Totally.
And why we're pressing into spiritual formation based on relationships and getting men together in formation groups, getting women together in formation groups, because it's, I see Jesus in you. And then another side of that, and Jason and I were talking about this yesterday, I see blind spots.
Right.
And I can't see them. I don't have a mirror. So I need men in my life that are my mirror to go, hey, I see this. Oh, absolutely. So thank you for sharing that. Whitney Capps, you can find her at whitneycapps.com. We could talk all day long, but you have to preach.
We've got a hard stop here in a few minutes, don't we?
We do. Tell us quickly about your books. Which came first?
So Sick of Me was released in March of 2019, and it's a trade book on the doctrine of sanctification. So what does it look like to walk with Jesus? And essentially, if you ever feel like you're your own worst enemy, if you're the problem in the relationship, which is probably true of most of us,
Yes,
then that's what Sick of Me is for. And then we released We Over Me, which is actually a Bible study on the 7 letters to the churches in Revelation. And so if you have a complicated relationship with the church, if you have church hurt, or if you're just confused about what the church is and how she functions, we look at Jesus's words to and about the church. And I think it's significant that his final sermons are to the church, about the church. Wow. And so that tells us a lot about Jesus's heart for his bride. So that was released in 2019 as well. And then in 2026, I'll release, it's called The Melody of Grace. And it's a systematic look at the doctrine of grace from the Old Testament to the New Testament. A lot of it kind of through the lens of suffering and what does grace look like lived out. But anyway, I'm really excited about it.
Well, you have a really cool website. And then you're also introducing the Simple Seminary.
Yeah.
What is that about?
So it's an online learning platform. So I said earlier, I didn't know that what I had was unusual. If you go to Revolution, you might not know that what y'all experience every Sunday is unusual, but most people don't get exegetical teaching every Sunday. And so they leave with kind of platitudes and real siloed understanding of Scripture. And so Dad and I teach an online learning platform that teaches women theology. And so you can do it at your own pace and your own speed, but we walk through Christology and theology proper and pneumatology. And then we did survey of Old Testament and survey of New Testament. We've done eschatology and ecclesiology and all those bigology words. We break them down.
Yeah.
I joke all the time. So I'm going to say this and you can rebuke me. I receive it from you. But my dad has his PhD in New Testament. My brother has his PhD in apologetics. And I'm me. None of those. And so I joke that we're the Holy Trinity. We've got the Father, the Father, the Son, and I'm the Holy Spirit going, let me explain it to all the normals out there. Like, that's my job. Let me just explain it to the average person. But that's what we do at Simple Seminary is take theology and make it accessible and applicable, but to help women kind of dig deep and understand the big ideas of Scripture.
That is so cool.
That.
You can probably Google Simple Seminary, or you can go to WhitneyCapps.com. Her podcast, and it's hard to believe there are other podcasts, but there are. Theology and other fun stuff.
Theology and other fun stuff. Well, so my buddy Russ Greer and I, we tackle what we believe are theological issues. I know you would agree with this, but like we did one on travel ball. Like, what's the theology of travel ball, and how does that intersect with what your family values are and what you believe about the church? We did one on profanity. Like, what's the theology of profanity, and what are we saying, and what does varying degrees of profanity look like? But then we also, we did a snake draft of our favorite cereals, our favorite movie theater candy. So again, it really is theology
what
and
those?
other fun stuff. You'd have to listen. We went back and forth. I don't love chocolate, so this is terrible. But mine are just kind of old-fashioned Lifesaver gummies. Like because I don't love chocolate, and on my maybe not holiest days, I'm smuggling in white chocolate because you can't really find that in a movie theater.
That's true.
So anyway, but
it's not smuggling in. They allow it.
There you go. But anyway, but it's a good time. It's a fun time. Yeah, they built it into the price of things. Yeah, specifically the popcorn.
I will say, of all the things I've ever heard you say, the only thing that might be disappointing is that gummy lifesavers are your favorite. Like,
you're questioning everything you know about me now.
I've never had a question about anything you ever said until that one.
I know.
And that's just simply because, and my size gives me away, I do love chocolate. I do love candy. And so of all the candy options out there, I'm like, that would be way down on my list.
I know. And it's really just the chocolate issue. So that's a me issue. Hi, I'm the problem.
But not Skittles or Swedish Fish or...
I don't love Swedish Fish. Skittles are okay. But again, I'm just kind of a purist. I love a Lifesaver gummy.
I'm not saying I don't like them. Yeah. But like in a bag of Halloween candy, I am not going for that.
And I get that. I do totally get that. And probably it wouldn't make the list, except that you can usually find them at movie theaters. And to be honest, one of the things we talked about in the episode is I'm not a sweets person in general. I'm going to go through popcorn first.
That makes sense.
Candy would be secondary to all of that. Popcorn is the main event for me.
Now, would you ever mix M&Ms with popcorn?
That's a pro move. I will say that's a pro move. But again, because I don't love chocolate, not for me. Okay. But I do know that's a pro move.
It is. Or if you're at the movie theater, Goobers.
Yes.
Or the Raisinette.
Yeah.
I don't think
get
out of here with that.
I don't think the Raisinette is appropriate outside of the movie theater. I think it's indigenous to the movie.
I don't think the Raisinette is ever appropriate. Never.
And just so people don't get in line to ask this one question, what is your favorite cereal?
So My favorite
Come on,
cereal
Whitney,
I love Captain Crunch.
Come on now.
I love Crunch Berries. Those
You
are
have
two
redeemed
up
yourself.
there. I
You've
love
redeemed
Captain
yourself.
Crunch.
Yeah.
And I know, and I hate it because it tears up the roof of your mouth.
It does,
It's
doesn't it? It does.
But the love is pain, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's worth it. But that's one of my
You
top
do have
tiers.
to let it sit in the milk
You
for a
got to
little
let
bit.
it bake,
Soften
up a little bit. Yeah. So how about you?
I love Captain Crunch. I mean, as a kid, I love Lucky Charms.
Yeah.
Reese's Puffs.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
My kids got into that one. It's funny. I used to love. Gosh, what was the name of it? I'll think about it later. But it wasn't like a top one. It was the one with the frog. What was that one? What was that called?
Yes. Yes.
Remember that one?
I do.
It wasn't like fruity.
No.
But
It's
I always
not
loved
Trix.
that.
No, it's not
No.
Trix.
No,
What
it wasn't
was it?
Trix.
It wasn't Cocoa Crisp. It was something like that.
Oh, I can see the frog.
I know.
That's
Yeah.
so
You see
funny.
it?
And I can
Yes.
see the little nugget things
Yes,
that those
the
were.
little nugget
yeah,
things.
they
Yeah.
were so good.
I used to love those.
Yeah, I'm with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But no, Captain Crunch is in an all-time top 3.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hilarious
Yeah.
that someone is screaming into the void right now what the name of the cereal is that we can't come up with.
They
You're
are.
like, how do you not know?
You know what I
Anyway.
used to do is and this is, again, I have what doctors call a weight problem. I used to take the marshmallows from Lucky Charms and put them in Captain Crunch.
Oh, that's
Yes.
a pro move.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Jason came to play.
Yes.
I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
there was the splitting of the atom, and then there was taking the marshmallows
That's
and
right.
putting it into the Captain Crunch.
Sugar Smacks?
Sugar
Smacks?
Yes, that's
something
what it was.
something like that?
Yes.
Are we
Yeah.
close?
It was,
maybe?
there was a
Anyway,
frog with the
something-
Sugar
yes.
Smacks.
Now,
Yes.
now I'm going to look that up while you
Yeah.
keep talking.
Yeah,
I think that's
I'm
it.
more of a bougie cereal.
Are
guy,
you?
'cause
Okay.
I don't like super sweet desserts.
Yes.
No, I peanut M&M, dark chocolate peanut M&M,
There you go.
all day long. But Cascadian Farms Honey Nut O's.
I have had that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a
Yeah.
really good one.
Yeah, and every 6 weeks it's on BOGO at Publix.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honey Smacks.
Honey Smacks. I
That's
knew
what
we
it
were
was.
circling.
Yes.
We were circling. Okay.
That-
Yep.
And I love Corn Pops. I used to love Corn Pops. Remember that?
yes.
Yeah.
I loved
Yeah.
Corn
Yeah.
Pops.
This is so funny. This is
People who came in at the end of the episode are like, "What did I
What
just?
it just-
What
yes.
just happened? What did I miss?"
Theology and other fun stuff.
Theology
There
and
was-
other fun stuff.
There was Sugar Smacks too, though.
Yeah,
Okay.
there were. Yeah.
Yeah, Sugar Smacks, Honey Smacks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those
But the
those
frog
good.
was Honey Smacks,
It was
right?
Honey
Yeah,
Smacks.
there you go.
Yes. Yeah.
And do you know that on the Raisin Bran box, every Raisin Bran box says 2 scoops. So like if you get that little personal size box, apparently it's just all raisins. That's, I don't know how they do that.
We need to test that theory.
I never ate those either. I hated them.
Oh, I
Anything
lo-
with raisins, I hated.
Oh, see, I actually
right.
did like Raisin Bran.
Yeah, yeah. And the scoop, that is a uniformed unit of measurement.
Okay.
Yeah, the scoop. Yeah. I don't even know where that came from. Thank you so much.
Hey, I loved it. Thanks for letting me hang out with you guys. It means the world.
Come back.
I'd love
please,
it.
Please. Even if you are not speaking, even if it's not a Bide night, come back and record an episode
Sounds
of the
great.
podcast.
Sounds like we need to do one on cereal and movie theater candy.
We
We're
do.
going to need to add that
Yeah.
into the lineup somewhere.
Yes.
So, yeah.
We need to have a contest where we rank these.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
we
right.
could, March is coming up. We could do a March Madness
There you
bracket
go.
We should.
There you
Let's
go.
do that.
of cereal and candy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And see.
And a long time ago on the radio, I did one of theologians.
Okay.
So we had a theologian bracket.
Nice.
And it got down to the championship round was Spurgeon and Piper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Who would be in your top 5 of theologians?
Mm.
in your final 4
Dead, alive, doesn't matter.
or your Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. And
So-
take Jesus off.
Yes,
We all
yeah,
understand
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
For sure, I read a lot of Keller. I read a lot of Piper. When I'm studying, I love Dr. Norman Geisler. I go to
Love him.
Geisler a lot. I think one of my favorite commentaries, just to kind of get into a text, I read a lot of Wiersbe. So when I think
Yeah.
about who I'm reading now, if I'm reading for pleasure, C.S. Lewis is for sure up
Yeah.
there. I've read a ton of his stuff, and I enjoy just
Yeah.
the reading of C.S. Lewis. But studying when I'm preparing to teach or whatever, those are probably pretty high up in the mix. So.
That's good.
Well, speaking of teachers, you have to go teach. So
We do.
We're going to wrap this up. This is the portion of the program that we give credit to our staff. We
Yeah.
have a pretty big staff. We're always hiring new people. But our producer is Brian Damerow. You met him earlier. He came in here.
He helped us fix up all the cabling that was going on here.
Our video technician is the king, Kian Sadishi.
And his name is Kian. It means the king.
I love it.
Yes.
Persian.
Our key grip is Jakub Puszczykowski.
We're very international here. He's
we
from
are.
Poland.
I love this.
Real guy.
And his wife also works here, and her name is Puszczykowska.
No way.
Yeah,
Gendered.
Gendered.
Yeah, the last. Yeah,
Yep.
That's fascinating.
Our film director is Marcos
Guardiola.
Love it. I can't roll my R's. I'm glad you did that.
There's only one in the room that can. Our head of doctrine and theology is theologian. That's her name.
I like
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Our chief evangelist is Salvation. Our backsliding prevention officer is lukewarm. Our Swedish witnessing director is Bjorn again.
He's my favorite.
His name's Bjorn.
Well
Bjorn.
played.
Thank you.
Well played.
Thank you. Our expert on Russian eschatology. Do you have one?
No, I don't.
yeah.
I'm going to use yours.
Pitov Hell.
Pitoff.
There we go.
Pitov Hell. Our director of holiness is Mortification. Our staff counselor is Les Moody. He's always busy.
Yes.
Our giving coordinator is Generosity. Our nativity coordinator, she's from France.
Okay.
And she's Jewish. Her name is Beth Lechem.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Our co-pastors of Plagues are Manny Locust and Lance Boyles.
Nice.
Now, when people are listening to this, there's music playing behind it. So
I just want you to know this was worth the price of admission right here.
Thank you. Our sabbatical director, Trip Long. Our missional expert is Samaria. Our strategist for the final battle is Irma Geddon.
Nice.
Irma Geddon. Our resident prayer warrior is Neil Down. Our executive director of spiritual warfare is Demonic. Our director of Old Testament covenants, he was knighted.
Yeah.
His name is Sir Circumcise.
Oh, well played.
Yes, thank you. Our video technician in charge of instant replay is Slow Moses. Our director of New Testament baptism, and this is baptism weekend, his name is Phil DeTub. Our wardrobe is provided by Saul of Target.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you. Our staff real estate expert is Simon the Zillow. Our
This just gets better. I keep thinking we're done.
No,
there's more.
No,
there's,
we're not
wait,
done.
there's more.
We're not done. And the ones that are in different colors, we don't use them anymore because
we let them go.
Yeah, we had to let them go.
Yeah.
Our catering was provided by, and this is the only Asian Jewish restaurant in Cherokee County, Benny Hanukkah. Yes.
Got me.
Our chief farmer and dietitian is Daniel Fast.
Okay.
And our new one, he's the chief estimator.
This is the new one.
Yeah,
We just hired.
he's
Brand new.
Brand new. He's the chief estimator of Old Testament timelines. He
Okay.
gives just an estimate.
Yeah.
His name is Ishmael.
Well played,
Ishmael.
I like that one. Yeah.
Everybody listening, pray right now for Whitney. Pray for her family. Pray for Chad. Pray for the boys. Thank you so much.
Loved it.
You're a gift to our church.
Yes.
You are
Thank you.
part of our family.
Thank you.
And Pastor Jason has something he says at the end of every podcast.
It's the best news we ever heard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trust God and take a nap.
There you go.
Yeah.
And the king has one more move.
He does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he does. All right. We'll see you next time.
See you next time. Thank you.